Hey there, everybody. I'm here in the Miart Adventures store here in Redmond. You can see it is obviously a climbing shop. And I wanted to take this moment to talk about quick draws, make an all-around video on how quick draws are set up, what the different parts are, and what the different types of quick draws are, because there's actually plenty of different quick draws out there that we can choose from, and one may be better for a certain situation than another one. So let's just talk about parts of the quick draw in general. Everyone knows this thing is called by now. This is a carabiner, and we have another carabiner right here. And this part in the middle is known as the bone. Some places call it the dog bone, but that's the center part in the middle. So there we have all the parts of the quick draw. It's pretty simple. You may have noticed, especially on a lot of modern quick draws, there are two different colored carabiners, as well as one carabiner that's fixed in place and the other one that you can move all over. And these quick draws have different uses. The one that you can move around a whole lot, this one is made to be clipped into a bolt on the wall, whereas this one that doesn't move around is made for the rope. And the reason why it's fixed in place is it makes it easier to clip rope into the bottom part of that carabiner. It doesn't flop around on you at all. As well as this particular carabiner has the colored carabiners for the reasons that you don't accidentally mix up the bolt end and the rope end. Now, it is very important to have one carabiner attached to the bolt and one attached to the rope, and not switch the quick draw around at all, because what can happen is if you're working on a route and fall a lot on this quick draw, is little burrs and other scraps of metal can form right here on this part of the bolt carabiner. And if you flip these around all liberally, when the rope is sliding through the carabiner, it can actually cut, or these little burrs right here can damage your rope. And it can damage it and can cut it, or get it to the point where it's core shot and you have to retire your rope. So it really helps the lifespan of your equipment if you just keep the bolt end to the bolt and the rope end to the rope. And it helps with the different colored carabiners because it's very easy to tell which end is which. Now, you can tell from other specific carabiner setups, like this one right here. You'll notice how there's a straight gate and a bent gate, as well as those other things I talked about earlier where this carabiner is free to move around. So this means this is the bolt end and this is the rope end. Straight gate is easier to, well, it doesn't matter how easy it is to clip onto the bolt, but the bent gate makes it a lot easier to clip rope into. It helps catch on the carabiner a bit more. So if you have solid gate carabiners on your quick draw as opposed to wire gate carabiners, that's how you can tell the difference. Now then, moving on, there are different types of quick draws. There are quick draws that may be better to use while sport climbing, and quick draws that may be better to use while alpine or trad climbing, and that's what I'm going to move into. I have them all laid out along here. Let's start with the sport quick draw. So this is what I mean by sport quick draw. Again, we have the carabiner that moves around a whole lot for the bolt, and then we have a really large carabiner. You can see these carabiners are made very differently, and that's because this thing is made to be as easy to clip into the rope as possible. You can see it's a really big carabiner, really wide opening with the gate, and it's just a really big carabiner, so it fits in your hand pretty well. So everything about this quick draw is made for ease of clipping. They do on average tend to be a bit heavier, some of the heavier, more burly quick draws, because you are going to put a lot of abuse under these with falls and other whatnot. So that is something to keep in mind. That's why the dog bone right here is really wide as compared to the example quick draw from earlier, how that's a bit more thin. So that's one thing to watch out for. And then just with the wide bone we have right there, it is easier to grab and pull up on, which is something you do tend to do while sport climbing. But that's pretty much it. That's what a sport draw is. They do tend to be a bit heavier. They do work in plenty of other applications like multi-pitch climbing, but they are made specifically for really hard sport routes. Here is a lightweight carabiner, or quick draw, sorry. This can be used for not only sport climbing, if you did want to use it for sport climbing, but its main purpose is for when you are climbing bigger routes, perhaps. It's really lightweight. Multi-pitch climbing, trad climbing also, because it's really low profile. Takes up a lot less space on your harness, adds a lot less weight to your harness. And overall, it just sort of helps you forget about it a little bit more. Like I mentioned earlier, it has the solid gates, but it's still arranged the same as a normal quick draw. And this can be used for any number of certain applications, but where it really shines is in weight savings. The dog bone is a lot thinner compared to that sport draw, and it's just designed for taking up as little space and being as lightweight as possible while on your harness. Some of the other quick draws you'll see in my videos of my personal gear I use, the Black Diamond Oz draws, those are about as lightweight as the quick draws currently get on the market. Other nice features about this are the nose on both the carabiners. Enable easy slide in, slide out to either bolts or rope. Makes it a bit easier to clean gear, but that's just an extra feature, which is kind of nice to have. Moving to a quick draw that's in between the lightweight, the ultra lightweight, and the super durable heavy quick draw is more of an all-around quick draw. This is one that's marketed as it can fit both the niche of sport climbing draw as well as the niche of more adventurous climbing sort of quick draw. Now, would I want a rack of these while on a big wall versus a rack of the really thin ones? Not exactly, no, because they do take up a lot of space and they are considerably heavier, but it is sort of a good middle ground to have. And that's what this Black Diamond was going for when they made this quick draws. They wanted something as all around as they could possibly have. They also have a couple different options with these. One where it's 2 wire gates, the other where it's 1 solid gate, 1 wire gate, and then another quick draw I don't have where it's both solid gates. So they tried to just fit the gambit of whatever any climber would sort of want or would need out of their quick draws, and then they tried to make one that would fit as many places as possible. It's also very common for sport quick draws to come in a couple different sizes, lengths of the dog bone. The carabiners don't change, but the dog bone does change. This is I believe a 6-inch dog bone. This is the most common size, and then you get into some longer sizes that bring the carabiner down to here or maybe even lower. So that's another thing to look into, but a good set. A good thing you can do is just buy a rack of 6 of these things. They all come into a rack, and I'm not trying to sell you any specific equipment or anything. It's just what happens to be in the store. But these things come packaged up in either sets of 6, or there's sometimes sets of 4 or 5 or whatever. If you buy 2 sets of 6, 12 sport quick draws is a good amount to have for whatever thing you want to do. That's just a good baseline, is 12 quick draws. Moving on to Alpine draws. Now, some of you may not know what Alpine draws are, but it's not too complicated of a setup. You have 2 free carabiners and then a single length sling in between them. If you don't know what a single length sling is it's some people call them 4-foot slings, other people call them 2-foot slings. 24-inch slings is very common, but it should be enough to sling it over your shoulder once. So that's how they got the name shoulder length sling, which is also what they're known for. So you can look up on the internet to figure out which ones are which, but any company will use one of those terms for this particular sling. The way how you make an Alpine draw is you have your sling, your 2 carabiners are connected to it. I like to start with the right one. It doesn't matter which one you start with, but I take the right carabiner, put it through the left carabiner, and then see how I slide my hand down. I rotate the whole thing and let the carabiner pass completely through the left carabiner, and then I'm going to clip where my finger was pinching. There you go. Now I have an Alpine draw made up. What that means is if I'm at a point, I can clip this to whatever I want, and I can pull out the lower quick draw. I take it out of all 3 of these loops. I can clip it into one loop, doesn't matter which one, and then when I pull this out, it all just falls apart. No, that's not true. Let's try to clip it better. When I pull it out, you can see how it just extends out to its full length. And that's the big advantage with Alpine draws, is that extension ability. You generally use these on longer routes or maybe trad climbing, where you're going to have more features. If there's a giant block of rock here and then your connection point is here, then it's not going to reach, and it's going to cause a lot of rope drag. Whereas you can just extend this out and then you don't have that problem anymore. So that's a big advantage with Alpine draws. Some setups, if you use lighter carabiners, they can be lighter than some of the more all-around quick draws. They'll definitely be lighter than the sport quick draws, but most Alpine draws, no matter what materials you use, aren't going to be lighter than the ultralight, the super ultralight sport draws. So that's why I choose to bring a number of, I bring a number of these and a number of these while I'm out climbing my trad routes or my multi-pitch routes, because if I don't need a large amount of extension on a piece, I can save the weight and the space on my harness by just attaching a really lightweight sport draw versus another Alpine draw. But that's partially with my setup and my preferences, so other people do different things. But Alpine draw is very nice to have. Some people like to make them out of full 40-inch slings, which are double this amount. I personally just don't think that's too useful. There's not enough. I've never had a reason where I was thinking, oh man, I really need a double length sling to extend this piece out. So, and there's other things you can do to get the same result but not lose your double length sling. So some people prefer to do that, other people don't. But other than that, this was just my little video to explain the baselines of quick draws. Again, you have your sport variety, your ultralight variety, and then your all-around variety, and then your extension variety. So, it's good to have a good selection of quick draws. Maybe not a full set of all 4 of those, but something that you can mix and match with and then keep on your rack for when you need it. So, if you like this video, go ahead and press the like button. Leave a comment if you have any questions, or if you prefer something different. It's always nice to talk about gear, and we'll see you in the next video.